What's up guys, it's me, Kadar, and in this video I'll be taking a look at 5 weird role-playing games. These 5 RPGs are weird, simple, and crazy fun, and they have a lot of creativity and randomness behind them. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
The first game is Roll for Shoes, and it only has 6 rules. Yup, just 6 rules. This game is the ultimate role-playing game for those who do not want to prepare anything. Each player makes a character, and all it has is a name and one skill, which is Do Something 1. The Do Something skill does, wait for it, something! Yeah, it's basically just a generic skill that can be used to do anything. So when a character wants to do something, they pick one of their skills that is the most relevant to the situation and roll a number of 6-sided dice equal to the skill's level. The Game Master also rolls a number of dice that they feel like is appropriate for the difficulty of the action. If the character's roll is greater than the Game Master's, the task succeeds. Otherwise, it fails and the character attempting the task gains 1 experience point. If the roll the character made had all 6s, then the character gains a new skill specific to the action, with 1 level higher than the skill used. For example, if my character wanted to jump a high fence, I would use my Do Something skill to perform it. I then roll 1 6-sided die, as my Do Something skill only has 1 level, and the Game Master determines that they should roll 2 dice for the check. My die results in a 6, and the result of the Game Master's 2 dice is a 5. Since I succeeded, my character jumps the fence, and since all the dice I rolled resulted in a 6, I get a new skill, which in this case is Leaping 2. Experience points can be used to change a die into 6 for the purpose of gaining a skill alone. Now that's pretty much all there is to Roll for Shoes. It's really fun to see what wacky solutions players come up with using the skills they have, and honestly, campaigns just can go absolutely wild when playing. This next game is for sadists. This game is designed purely to screw one player over. This game is Everyone is John. This is a game for 3 or more players and it needs 1 6-sided die, 1 notepad per player, and some kind of token. One player is selected as John, and the others become voices which are voices in John's head. Each player that's a voice picks a name for their voice. Each voice then chooses their obsession, which is what they ultimately want John to accomplish. Obsessions come in 3 levels. Level 1 obsessions are simple, like eating candy, yelling in public, etc. These are simple one-step goals. Level 2 obsessions are more complicated, like collecting human hands, if you're into that kind of stuff, stealing and hanging a mannequin in a public place, or just straight up shooting somebody. Finally, there are level 3 obsessions. These are dangerous, dastardly feats, like swimming in toxic waste, robbing banks, or just blowing up a building. Voices choose an obsession and determine its level. Voices hide their obsession from each other for a shock factor. Now, John sucks at almost everything he does, and whenever John attempts to do something, he must roll a 6 on a 6-sided die to succeed. Now, all is not lost, as John's voices have skills. Voices can pick 2 or 3 very specific skills, but voices that pick 3 skills receive a penalty. These skills should not be open-ended like, I can do anything, but instead should be narrow, such as the skill of talking to adults, or overeating, or lockpicking. Whenever an action calls for a skill that a voice has, John only has to roll above a 3 on the 6-sided die to succeed. Voices can spend willpower tokens to increase the result of their roll, with 1 willpower token increasing the roll's value by 1. Now, each voice gets 10 willpower tokens, or 7 if the voice has 3 skills instead of 2. Voices show John their obsession and their skills. Now, the game begins. John now sets the scene for the voices, telling them where they are. The voices now bid their willpower tokens for control. The voice who bid the most willpower tokens now controls John and loses the tokens they bid. The voice who is in control selfishly tries to use John as their pawn to get John to meet that voice's obsession. For example, if a voice is obsessed with explosions, they will try to get John to blow stuff up. Voices should keep track of how many times they achieve their obsession. Every time an action is failed or the voice in control gets a point, control for John must be contested again. Each voice gains 1 willpower token and must bid for control once again. The game ends once all voices run out of willpower or when John dies. At the end of the game, all voices reveal their obsessions and calculate their points. For a voice to calculate their points, they multiply the number of times they met their obsession and by their obsession's level. The voice with the most points at the end wins. The game can be really wacky, and players' antics to fight over getting John to do what they want is downright hilarious at times. It's kind of fun and appalling at the same time to see what twisted ways your friends come up with to get John to achieve their obsessions. The name of the third game is Drunken Bear Fighter. Yeah. You play as Russian agents who fight drunken bears in the Moscow underground, because that's normal. Players have 4 stats, which are power, speed, charm, and drunken bear knowledge. Power is used when fighting enemies up close or in certain feats of physical strength. Speed is used to avoid bear attacks and is for feats of dexterity and agility. Charm is used when interacting with other people, and the most powerful stat of them all, DBK, or Drunken Bear Knowledge, is used to learn about and understand the mysterious drunken bears. Players rank these statistics from 4 to 1, with 4 being the highest value and 1 being the lowest. Players also get 4 skills, which can be anything the players choose, and each skill must correspond to a stat, and each stat can only have 1 skill. For example, a player's skills can be punching drunken bears in the face for power, acrobatics for speed, lying for charm, and drunken bear hideouts for drunken bear knowledge. Players are agents of the RDBFO, the Russian Drunken Bear Fighting Organization, and they're given a pistol and 2 other pieces of equipment. For an action with a chance of failure, the player must find the relevant stat and roll under its rank to succeed. If a player has an applicable skill, they can increase their stat by 1 for the duration of the action. If a player has the necessary equipment for an action, they can also increase their stat by 1 for the duration of the action, and by 2 if the player has fancy equipment. For combat, the attacker rolls to see if they hit their target. If the attacker succeeds, their target can use their speed stat to get out of the way in time. If the target succeeds, nothing happens to them. If the target fails, they subtract the number rolled on the attacker's die from any of their stats. For example, if a target receives 3 damage, they can either subtract 3 from one stat, or divvy it up as they choose. A player may heal themselves or one another with a test once after each encounter. If the test succeeds, the player may restore as many stat points as the number rolled. And that's pretty much all there is to Drunken Bear Fighter. There is not much content for the game, but for a game that's all about fighting drunk bears, I'd say it's enough to have a good time. This game is perfectly set up for players to experience a B-movie plot in a role-playing game, and it's good if your role-playing group wants to try something different. This next game is about Muppets and babies, and it's creatively called Muppet Babies. Yeah. You thought drunken bears were crazy? Try on a game about Muppet Babies. There are 2 attributes for characters called Muppet and Baby. To make a character, first players must choose what they look like or their form. Then players must choose a special ability, which can be anything. Players then choose a number between 2 to 5. A lower number means that players are better at their Muppet skill, which means that players are good at doing ridiculous things and doing action-oriented tasks. A higher number means that players are better at their baby skill, which means that players are good at acting cute, being uncoordinated, and learning new things. Players start with a diaper, because why not? Players also have a campaign-appropriate costume and 1 plot-related item that is declared when players decide to use it. Whenever players do something risky, they roll one six-sided die to determine the outcome. If players are working together, one dice is added, and one die is also added if the action being performed is related to a player's special ability. Each result of the dice is compared to either the relevant Muppet or Baby attribute. If the attribute being used is Muppet, then a roll above the number players chose is desired. If the attribute that is being used is Baby, then a roll below the number players chose is desired. If no dice succeed, then the action the players tried to make goes wrong. If one dice succeeds, players barely manage to succeed, but there is a cost to that success which is determined by the game master. If two dice succeed, players accomplish their task with no penalty. If three dice succeed, players accomplish their task and get a bonus determined by the game master. That's pretty much all there is to Muppet Baby, but what did you expect? It's a game where characters' only skills are Muppet and Baby, so it isn't going to be super detailed, but it is going to be uber strange. We have reached our fifth extravagantly weird RPG, and it's called Witches of 1941. Its premise is straightforward. You're witches killing Nazis. Enough said. This game is extremely similar to Muppet Babies, but it has a lot more customization and open-endedness. Plus, the setting is awesome. You're witches blowing up Nazis. How cool is that? Creating characters takes only 4 steps. First, characters must be given a style or personality trait. Then each character gets a role which loosely determines how players' witches function. Players then must pick a number from 2 to 9. The higher the number, the better players are at white magic, which is healing defensive magic used for the benefit of others. The lower the number, the better players are at using black magic, which is offensive, deadly magic used to harm others. Players also start with World War II era clothing, a robe, a broomstick, and a spellbook containing 3 spells. These spells are chosen by players and their game master. Players then form a coven and pick 2 strengths of that coven. Players then also pick 1 problem with their coven. Whenever something risky is attempted, players roll a 10-sided die. 1 more 10-sided die is rolled if players are prepared, and an additional die is rolled if players have expertise in the task at hand. If players are using white magic, their goal is to roll under the number they chose. If players are using black magic, their goal is to roll above the number they chose. Each dice is then compared to the number the player attempting the task chose for their character. Similar to Muppet Baby, if no dice succeed, the task goes wrong. If 1 dice succeeds, the player barely manages to accomplish their task, and a consequence of the task happens. If 2 dice succeed, the player accomplishes their task with no difficulty. If all 3 dice succeed, the player gets a critical success, and players succeed and gain an additional benefit. One difference, however, is the ability of broomsticks and bed knobs. If a player rolls a die whose result is exactly the number the player chose, they invoke broomsticks and bed knobs, allowing them to create a spell on the fly that benefits all players. Players can determine what this spell does alongside their game master. That's all there is to Witches in 1941. The premise is interesting, the rules are simple, and the game has a lot of room for growth.
And those are 5 really weird role-playing games. Please leave a like on this video and subscribe for more content, as well as comment your favorite game down below. A link to the rules of all these games will be in the description. If you're interested in getting your hands on a brand new trading card game, check out the Gladiator trading card game. A link to its shop page will also be in the description down below. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.